Welcome to this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind, produced by Souza Media. The Seekonk Speedway podcast series is a production of Seekonk Speedway and Souza Media. For more information on Souza Media, visit kylesouza.com. And for more information on Seekonk Speedway, visit seekonkspeedway.com. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Seekonk Speedway podcast series for the 2022 season. Want to thank everybody for returning in 2022. If you're listening to this podcast, who knows when, you might be before opening day, maybe you're catching up on it from after. Welcome back. Been a long off season. We're excited to get rolling with our 76th season of competition at Seekonk Speedway in 2022. Podcast series is back once again. We're going to have myself, the owner of Souza Media, Kyle Souza, joining you here on the podcast series. I'm happy to walk you through everything that's going on at the third mile again in 2022. We will also have a bunch of guests. As usual, we'll have driver guests, whether it be rookies, veterans, race winners, drivers that came so close, the champions at the end of the year. So many different things going to be caught up on here in the podcast series. The big thing this year, of course, is our previews as we get into the year. This is the late model division preview as part of our NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts weekly racing series. So, welcome. Glad to have you back for the podcast series. A lot of success last year in a growing podcast platform. We had a lot of downloads across the end of the year. Appreciate everybody listening. And if there's anything you'd like to see on the podcast series, shoot us a message on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. Find the Souza Media page. Shoot us a message there. Would be happy to include what you guys are looking for here in the podcast series and help you to get all the information you need from the Third Mile Oval again in 2022. Now, again, this is our late model division preview. If you're looking for one of the sportsmen, the sport trucks, or the pro stocks, they're also either coming out or they're out already. So you can check our podcast platform and check those out as the 2022 season gets underway. This, of course, is our late model preview and very interesting late model division going into 2022. There's a lot of different things going on in this division, but I think the number one thing we have to watch is the playoff system. Now, for those of you that are not aware, we are instituting that playoff system for 2022. It's the Seekonk Speedway Drive for the Cup, presented by Sunoco Race Fuels. It's going to be very, very exciting, and I say it's going to be similar to the NASCAR system in the way that it's going to be a bracket-style playoff, but it's also got our own twist here at Seekonk Speedway, and that's an exciting part of what's coming up in 2022. Basically, how this is going to work is at the end of August, we're going to take the top 8 drivers in each of our NASCAR Saturday divisions, and they are going to be the playoff contenders going over the 2022 season. Now, that means that at the first race, the playoff system is going to take place in September, the 3 weeks of racing there. I believe, don't quote me on the dates. Let me take a look here so I don't give you the wrong dates. But the 3 weekends in September that we have NASCAR racing, September 10th, September 17th, and September 24th will be the playoff system. Now, 8 drivers make the first round. Second round will be 6 drivers. The top 6 of those 8 finishers in the first round advance. And then the final 4 will be the 4 drivers out of the 6 that make it into the final 4. Basically, out of the 8, the top 6 finishers out of those 8 in the first playoff race move on, and it continues like that over the course of the playoff system. There's a few other tweaks in that. We'll go over that as the season gets all going and it gets a little bit closer. But visit SeekonkSpeedway.com in the news section to read a lot more about the playoff system. Let's talk about the late models. Let's see who we think are going to be the top contenders as this playoff system gets underway. Of course, defending champion Vinny Renegado, he's got to be right up there. I mean, you got to wonder what it's going to be like for Vinny Renegado to deal with this playoff system in 2022. A little bit different for him. He's used to this consistency platform, almost won a couple championships over the last couple years. Last year, he was able to seal the deal and become a late model champion at Seekonk Speedway, but he did it in this old format. So what's this going to take for him to get into the playoffs? I don't think it's going to be very difficult for him to get into the top 8 and make the playoffs. What's it going to be for Vinny Renegado when it comes time for the playoffs? Is there going to be some tough luck for him? Is he going to make the Final Four? Does he even have a chance to repeat? If he doesn't make the Final Four, we're guaranteed a new champion for 2022. So excited to see how he plays out. I do think he's still the favorite. Listen, the car's fast. He's there when he needs to be. Always there at the end of the race. Vinny Renegado, to me, is your favorite in the late model division. But we'll see how it shakes out. To me, there's a group of drivers that are going to be here to try to knock him off. Jerry DeCasperi Jr., looking for his 8th championship. Of course, he watched Dave Darling pick up his 8th championship last year. We will see how it goes for Jerry DeCasperi Jr. in 2022. Is he going to be the favorite to knock Vinny off in this playoff system? What about Chase Belcher, the Everett's Auto Parts, number 35? A lot of speed last year, dominated much of the summer, multiple feature wins, driving for Everett's Auto Parts. Is he the favorite in the late model division to make this Final Four and make a splash? What about Richie Murray? Multiple generations in the Murray family, and Richie's got a late model that's quick. We saw that last year. He didn't get to victory lane last year, but man, was he quick over the course of the summer as a rookie contender in the late model division. Impressive stuff from him to move from the sport trucks to the late models, caught on really quick, and the car was fast. So I expect Richie Murray to be a contender as the season goes along. What about Josh Hedges? Picked up his first career late model win last year in the number 29. Had an up and down year, finished up near the front of the championship standings. He wants to win more in 2022. Does this playoff system fit somebody like him, a former sport truck champion, behind the wheel of the number 29 in his second full-time year in the Seekonk late model? What about a guy like Ryan Flood? Is he the one to run in this championship? Does this fit him perfectly? Had some up and down runs last year. How about this playoff system? Does this fit right into his wheelhouse and make it so he just makes the top 8 and then turns it on in September? I don't know. We'll see. Rowdy Burns, Jacob Burns, a former Legend Cars standout at Seekonk and winner, had some good runs last year in his rookie in the late model campaign. I expect him to be a contender over the course of the year in the late model division. What about the 2 rookie contenders? Chris Gomes, moving up from the Sportsman division, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Sportsman. He's moving up. Expect him to be fast this year. And Smilin' Reese Bogue, moving up from the Legend Cars, a graduate of our Seekonk Youth Racing Association down in the Bandolero division. Reese picking up a championship there. He moved up into the Legend Cars last year. Didn't win, but was top 5 for much of the year. And Bogue's going to be a major contender as a rookie this year. Those two really are going to be the battle for the rookie championship there. Its own little battle with the Rookie of the Year honors. John Silva, a rookie contender again this year. Not again. A rookie contender this year in the late models. What is his season going to be like in the number 67? Don't forget the Lalliers. Paul Lallier picking up his first career late model win last year. Tyrell Lallier, his son, expecting him to be competitive this year. Nate Tracy registered to come back for another year. Nick Johnson probably going to run a couple select races. We'll see if Ryan Lynham runs any late model races. He's registered for Richard Sprague. Nick Uring, a former Pure Stock front runner in the late model division, has had some strong runs. We'll see if he's a contender this year. What about Mike Duarte, former sport truck champion, returning to the late models again this year? We'll see about him. Charlie Rose expected to run at least a part-time schedule. Maybe not for the playoffs. We're not really sure. We'll see how that shakes out. But Charlie's a competitor that's tough and going to be a guy that we might have to watch to visit victory lane when he shows up. These playoff races are going to be exciting, not only because of the top 8, the top 6, and then down to the final 4, but everybody else is still running these races. It's not like the rest of the drivers stay home. I mean, it's still going to be a normal Saturday night race for the other drivers. So it's going to be exciting to watch everything mixed together here in 2022. Really excited to see it all pan out and see who picks up the championship this year. I'm excited to see who picks up the first win of the year coming up on Sunday, May 2nd. Should be exciting in the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown Series this year. Of course, Everett's becoming the sponsor of the Triple Crown in 2022. We want to thank them for jumping on board to sponsor the Triple Crown. Extra distance racing in the late models, always great. Excited to see what happens there. So much good coming out of this late model division. And, oh yeah, one more thing. Rick Martin registered a late model. No idea what the intentions are there. How many races is he going to run? I don't know the answers. Another thing for you to watch, though, in 2022. We're going to take our first break of the late model preview podcast. And when we come back, we're going to welcome the race voice. Kevin Boucher joins us to discuss the 2022 late model season at Seekonk Speedway. Welcome back to the Late Model Division preview for the 2022 NASCAR Weekly Racing Series at Seekonk Speedway. Of course, this year sponsored by the Advanced Auto Parts Series. across the whole country in the NASCAR sanctioned tracks. The late models are in that club as a NASCAR sanctions facility here at Seekonk Speedway. And in 2022, here is one of the many divisions over the course of our 9 divisions that I think is one of the more wide open when it comes to this playoff system. Who's going to be the one that ends up champion at the end of the year? Could be, to me, 6, 7, 8 different guys. You could make a case for them winning the championship in 2022. Welcoming in our first guest of the Late Model Division Preview Podcast is the race voice himself, Kevin Boucher. And Kevin, man, I mean, what are your thoughts here? Vinny Renegado, obviously, after so many years of trying, picked up that championship last year, but a completely different format. And you got guys like Richie Murray, Chase Belcher, Rowdy Jacob Burns, Jerry DeGasperi, Josh Hedges, Ryan Flood, Reese Bogue, Chris Gomes, the Lalliers, Uring. I mean, the list just goes on and on of the late models. I really do feel like this is one of our more wide open battles when it comes to trying to pick the guys that are going to make the Final Four.
You know, playoff or no playoff, it's always a tough one to get because we've had so many different champions over the years under the old format. It's tough to pick somebody. And with this playoff format, it really becomes anybody's game. If you think back, if we had the playoff format the last 4 or 5 years, you probably had Vinny Renegado winning 2 or 3 championships because he always had that 1 or 2 bad nights that took him out of the hunt early. Last year, he was able to overcome an early DNF and pick up his first title. It really becomes anybody's game in the late models. You really can't put a favorite on anything there.
Yeah, I mean, again, Richie Murray, Josh Hedges, Chase Belcher, Rowdy Burns, Jerry DeGasperi, Ryan Flood. It just goes on and on. Kevin, I want to ask you specifically, though, about Jerry DeGasperi, who over the last couple of years has seemed to gain back his mojo a little bit. There was a stretch for a few years where he struggled. Seems like he's gained back some of that mojo. And to me, if he can get himself into the Final Four, I don't know that I would bet against him at all. Out of all these late model contenders, he's got the most experience. He's got a good crew behind him. And when push comes to shove, Jerry DeGasperi versus some of these guys, and me personally, I'd have a hard time picking against them.
I don't have a hard time picking against him, but I don't have a hard time picking for him either. He's one of those drivers that with over the years, 7 championship goes a long way. He knows his way around there, and he can step it up on a big night like that. So, yeah, he could be the guy everybody's looking for.
Now, in the next segment here in the Late Model Division Preview, we're going to welcome in Reese Bogue, who's a Rookie of the Year contender. And, Kevin, you've seen his progression over the course of his career, of course, from our Bandolero Division and our Seekonk Youth Racing Association. Last year in the Legend Cars was really strong, and now in the late models. He's going to talk about what it's been like to do that. But what about Reese Bogue? You've been watching him for a while now. This kid seems like he's got some really good talent, and he's adapted well to just about everything. I would say he's going to be a contender to make this final 8 drivers to get into the playoffs.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. He's been very consistent with everything he's gotten behind the wheel on. And while he didn't pick up any wins in the Legends last year, he was a contender week in and week out. So far this year, he's had a couple of practices with the late models, and he's really showed how comfortable he can be in that car. Now, practice is one thing. When you get into a race situation, it's something totally different. But we've seen drivers from the Legends make that move into the late models and become very successful. You saw Ryan Kuhn do it. He won a Legends championship and a late model championship. You saw Jake Johnson have success in both. So I really think he's going to be a contender this year. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to end up in that top 8.
Yeah, Reese Bogue is definitely going to be one of the threats. Kevin, is there somebody else in the late model division that jumps out of those names I mentioned? Murray, Hedges, Belcher, Burns, Flood, Gomes, the Lalliers. Is there 1 or 2 guys there that jump out to you as guys, not only, maybe not just talking championship-wise, but do you see any of those drivers having a really strong year in this division?
Well, we saw Richie Murray start a little bit late in the season. I think it was 3 or 4 races in before he made the jump up from the trucks. And he was very consistent all year long. Didn't pick up a win, but a lot of podium finishes with that car. So this will be a breakout year for him, I'm sure. Chase Belcher, you saw him pick up a handful of wins last year, and he really took that next step to what a lot of people think could be a championship year for him. Then you look at Josh Hedges, couple of wins. He just hasn't had the consistency he needs, but he's got a new car this year to him. He's real comfortable with it and looking for big things with that. You look at Paul Lallier, he went through that car over the winter. Off the trailer in practice, he was strong. It's going to be a tough year for the late models for anybody to gain more than 2 or 3 wins.
Yeah, I think last year in the first 6 or 7 late model races, we had 6 or 7 different winners. So I could definitely see that happening again in 2022. Championship-wise, I don't know, but is there one guy, Kevin, that jumps out to you as the one? Is it Vinny Renegado? To me, it's got to be until he shows me that he can't do it. Especially with you mentioning he's been so good at the end of the year in this division. I just don't know if anybody can beat him. If he gets there in a one-race battle, it's going to be tough.
It really is. But if you look at Vinny's finishing races over the last few years, he's been right there, if not in victory lane. So, yeah, I got to say, Vinny, he always finishes the season strong. He's got to be the odds-on favorite when you get into it. But there are a lot of drivers there who can knock him off. And if for some reason he doesn't make that Final Four, I would have to look at Chase Belcher on that.
Yeah, I agree. Belcher is going to be right there. I do think Richie Murray's a major contender as well for this championship. Josh Hedges is a former truck champion, so he knows how to get the job done. Who the heck knows? And Rick Martin registered a late model, too. No idea what's going on there. We're going to find out as the season gets along. Kevin's going to join me in the other division preview podcasts. If you haven't listened to those, suggest that you do. This is the late model division preview, and I mentioned we're going to take a quick break now and then welcome in Smiling Reese. That kid does nothing but smile. Even if he has a bad night, he's going to have a few bad nights in the late models, I'm sure, over the course of the year. That is how the game goes, and he knows that. We'll chat with him to wrap up the late model division preview in a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from the break, and happy to welcome on our driver guest as part of the late model division preview podcast. We've had one driver per the podcast series here as we get ready for the 2022 season to help preview the division, and this time we're going to talk to one of those rookie contenders I spoke about in one of the last segments. That is Smiling Reese Bogue. As I mentioned, he is a graduate of our Seekonk Youth Racing Association divisions, moved up into the Legend Cars last year. Didn't win, but man, was he close a couple times over the course of the year, and now he is moving to the late models. What a jump for Reese Bogue from a Bandolero into the late model division over the course of probably just 3 or 4 years, but he's got the talent to do it. Reese, thanks for joining us, man. Talk to me. You've driven this car a few times now. You drove it on a track rental by yourself, which is a whole new game. Then you got out there with other cars. What's it been like here as you start getting ready for 2022 in your rookie campaign?
Yeah, man. It was honestly a lot of fun. I'm not going to say it was easier, but it was less complicated than expected. Coming from the Legend, especially at Seekonk, you're always on the wheel every single lap, always on the edge. And going to the late model wasn't as bad on the edge, but a lot of fun to drive, got a lot to get used to. But the Grim was ear to ear there the first couple laps. But I was actually able to make my first pass and get a good read where I was at with other people on the track. That Saturday practice with everyone, so that was good. And I think we're going to be pretty good this year with a good piece opening day.
Well, so you had that practice day. You got your feet wet a little bit on your own. You had that practice day. You got around other cars. What's been the biggest challenge for you? I mean, you've driven some other cars. Of course, that Legend car, you've driven it both on asphalt at a couple of different tracks and a circle track like our track, or you've driven it on the road course. So if you've had a bunch of different racing, then, of course, the Bandolero, a whole different game, a lot smaller. But what's been the biggest challenge here in the first couple laps in this car as you get ready for the year?
The biggest challenge for us, and mainly it's really me, is just setup-wise, and then also the size. Like, in the Legend, you're almost sitting centered up in the car, and you got maybe 1.5 to 2 feet on the right side, but in late model, you got 3 or 4 more feet on the right side of you to the door. So it's a lot bigger of a car, and a lot more ground you're covering pretty quickly in these. But, yeah, I mean, we're struggling with the setup for the first couple of weeks. Not first couple weeks, first couple practice laps and stuff, and bounce to the nose, you should say, a couple weeks. But yeah, I think we'll get it down in the first couple of races, and then we'll be pretty competitive for the rest of the year.
So you got a couple of laps on your belt here. We're getting ready for opening day. What are your goals this year? I mean, you adapted really well to the Legend car last year. You became a top 5 contender pretty instantly, honestly, and you were up there. I know you wanted to win, but you had a lot of strong runs, especially in the second half of last year, getting down to the end of the year. What is the mindset in the late models? This is kind of a whole new game. You've got what I would consider some of the top competition in New England in our late model division. You got names like Jerry DeGasperi. He's been there so many years. Guys like Richie Murray, who I know you talked to. It just, the list goes on and on. Chase Belcher, Vinny Renegado, the defending champion. What are your goals? I mean, what is going to be a good year for you at the end of it when you look back? And what do you want to accomplish for you to go back and say it was successful?
Honestly, the first year we do want to do good. And we do want to get wins, and it'd be great if we could contend for a championship and wins every week. But my main goal is earn the respect of everybody out there. They've all been out there a long time, and I don't want to be just plowing through the field. I want to get respect with these guys because they've been here for a long time and they know probably some more than me out there. So I just want to get respect, have fun, and at the end of the day, walk home with the car that's in one piece, and know that we have a strong car, have a good team, and have the respect of everybody to go out there and fight for wins and championships.
Now, Reese, we talked at the beginning of this podcast in the first segment about the playoff system, and we spoke with Kevin Boucher about that a little bit too. I think this may kind of fit your wheelhouse a little bit, in my understanding, because you're going to get started at the beginning of the year, and let's say you have a little bit of a rookie stretch where you're trying to learn, you might struggle a little bit the first couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, as long as you make this top 8, you're still going to be in contention for this championship. What are your thoughts on this and kind of how you feel this playoff system could work out? Is it fair to say that this may work out great for you and you may be in prime form come the end of the year?
I would say so, yeah. As much as I've ran my whole life, normal point standard wise, every race counts and win counts, even just getting a gap. I think the playoffs will come into play, especially at the end, like you said. With a guy like me, I might be 5th in points, but I still have a shot to win it. Even the leader could be 70 points ahead of me going into that playoff race. So it just closes everything up, and I feel it gives a lot of people, and especially a guy like me in my first year, another shot almost to have a chance to learn throughout the year and then have the shot to win the championship at the end of the year. And I think that will work out in our favor, especially here in my first year.
Yeah, most likely. That's actually a great point. Reese, who are the people that are helping you here? I know you had a couple guys working with you at the track, of course, mom and dad. Who's behind this effort to help you get out here in the late models? Because not only is this a bigger car and everything, I'm sure it costs a little bit more money, and there's a lot more involved in it than there was in some of the other cars that you've driven in the past couple of years.
Yeah, well, I think Helgen South Coast Power Equipment, Newcomb's Tree Service, AJC Dumpsters, Critical Screen Printing Embroidery, CriticalTint.com, Trent Ridgerow Designs, my new spotter, Richard Reagan Jr., my mom and dad especially, but everybody I didn't mention, they know who they are, and this couldn't be possible without all those guys, and it's a lot of fun. Can't wait for this.
Well, Reese, we appreciate you joining us here on the season preview podcast for the late models. I am confident we will talk to you at some point again during the 2022 season, and we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you here for opening day coming up here real soon. We're excited. You're excited. It should be a great year, and look forward to chatting with you again here down the line.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and for everybody listening, good luck this year in your season.
All right, that's been Reese Bogue. Again, thank you for joining us here in the Late Model Podcast. That's it for the Late Model season preview for 2022. Who will be the champion come that Final Four? Stick with us to join us. Again, as Reese said, going to be exciting over the course of the 2022 season. Come join us Sunday, May 2nd. It's NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series opening day. We will continue on May 7th. So starting after opening day, we go right into our Saturday night schedule. Check out the full schedule, and you can buy all your tickets for every single event right now at SeekonkSpeedway.com. We will see you at the track, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.